I never thought a single bet could completely upend my life. My name is Ryan, and on paper I had it all together. Work, friends, a loving girlfriend named Isabella, and a comfortable little apartment in the heart of the city. Life moved in a predictable rhythm. Mornings filled with emails and meetings, evenings with takeout and Netflix. Predictable, boring, safe. At least that's what I told myself. The truth was more complicated. I had a secret, a fascination that had quietly grown over the years. I loved dressing in women's clothing. Not in the casual fun for a night way, but a deep, private thrill that came from the fabric brushing against my skin, the feel of heels lifting me higher, and the way makeup could completely transform the face in the mirror. It was my escape, my little world of self-expression hidden behind locked drawers and careful schedules. Isabella had always been amazing. She was smart, confident, and had a laugh that could make even the worst day better. She loved teasing me, and I loved it too, but there was one line I'd never crossed. I'd never let her see my secret side. I couldn't risk it. Couldn't risk her judgment, her disappointment, or even the faintest hint of awkwardness in our relationship. That private part of me had to stay hidden, until the day I lost a bet. It had started innocently enough. A silly challenge between friends during a weekend gathering. My roommate and a couple of our buddies had dared me to do something outrageous. It started with small dares, harmless pranks, but the stakes grew quickly. I was confident, cocky even, and laughed my way through each round. That confidence was my downfall. When they raced the final bet, I didn't hesitate. Fine, I said. If I lose, I'll do whatever you say. I didn't expect to lose. But I did. And what my friends decided would be my punishment was something I never imagined. I had to live like a woman for an entire month. Not just a costume for a night. Not just a playful disguise. Full-on, complete transformation, clothes, makeup, mannerisms, the works. I went home that night, the laughter and teasing from the gathering still ringing in my ears, and felt a mixture of dread and excitement curling in my chest. What did that even mean? How would I manage it? Could I do it? And, secretly, a small guilty part of me was curious. The idea of embodying this other side of myself, of exploring a world I had always only touched in private, made my pulse quicken. The apartment was quiet when I arrived, Isabella already asleep in the bedroom. I slumped onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. The thought of living this new reality, of stepping fully into femininity, was terrifying. But the more I thought about it, the more a thrill sparked inside me. What if this challenge wasn't just a punishment? What if it was an opportunity to embrace a side of myself I'd been denying? I had work in the morning, but sleep was impossible. My mind raced with thoughts of skirts, heels, lipstick, and the subtle sway of hips. I remembered the drawer in my closet I had carefully avoided, my collection of outfits I had experimented with in secret. Could this be the time to finally let them out? Could I turn this bet into something more transformative? I imagined waking up the next day and beginning the challenge. The first step would be small. Picking an outfit, applying a little makeup, experimenting with heels in the safety of my apartment. But even that simple act felt monumental. Every movement would be amplified. Every glance in the mirror a confrontation with my own desires and fears. Isabella's presence in my life made everything more complicated. She had a way of noticing the smallest details, the subtle changes in expression or posture. What if she saw? What if she questioned? Could I navigate this challenge without revealing my secret too soon? And more importantly, could I control the intoxicating thrill that came with transforming into this other self? As I lay there staring at the ceiling, I realized that the challenge was about more than just fulfilling a bet. It was a doorway into a world I had been curious about, a world I had longed to explore but had never dared. Fear and excitement tangled together, making my stomach twist with anticipation. By the time dawn broke, I had made a decision. I would start the challenge. I would step into this new reality fully, even if my hands shook and my heart pounded with anxiety. And somewhere deep down I knew that once I began, nothing would ever be the same. Because this was not just about winning or losing a bet anymore. It was about discovering a side of myself I had never truly allowed to exist. And living as her, at least for now, would change everything. The first morning of the challenge arrived like a punch to the gut. Sunlight spilled across the apartment, and for the first time, I stared at my reflection in the mirror with a sense of trepidation and thrill. The bet wasn't just about wearing a dress. It was about stepping fully into this new life, adopting every detail of a woman's appearance, mannerisms, and behavior. I opened my closet cautiously, heart hammering as my eyes fell on the neatly folded skirts, blouses, and dresses I had kept hidden for years. Each piece carried memories of secret experiments, brief nights alone when I had dared to explore this side of myself. Today those memories would no longer be private. Today they would become reality. I chose a simple, elegant dress, a soft pink that felt daring yet safe. The fabric slipped over my skin with a surprising intimacy, and I felt my breath catch. My hands shook slightly as I applied makeup, carefully blending foundation, lining my eyes, and painting my lips a subtle rose. The mirror reflected someone familiar yet entirely new. My chest tightened, not from the tightness of the dress, but from the awareness that I was no longer just Ryan in that reflection. I was something else. Someone else. The first steps in heels were terrifying. Each click against the hardwood floor felt exaggerated, loud, and exposing. I stumbled once, catching myself on the edge of the countertop, my pulse racing. This was no longer a private indulgence. It was living, moving, breathing as someone entirely different, and every movement was scrutinized by the imaginary eyes of the world. Evening brought its own tension. Isabella's schedule was unpredictable, and the fear of her returning early hovered like a dark cloud over every choice I made. Could I eat dinner without dropping something? Could I navigate the apartment without making a sound? Could I maintain this persona without letting panic betray me? I experimented with my voice, softening the tone, adding a subtle lilt, practicing the way I would walk and gesture if anyone else were around. Every detail mattered. Every glance in the mirror was a reminder that this wasn't a game anymore. It was a full immersion into a life I had only dared to imagine. As the days progressed, the transformation became more complex. I began adopting a routine, carefully selecting outfits each morning, practicing makeup techniques I had only experimented with in secret, and refining my posture and gestures. The thrill of the challenge mingled with a deep, underlying anxiety. I loved how it felt, but the fear of being discovered never fully dissipated. The internal struggle was relentless. On one hand, I reveled in this newfound femininity, feeling more alive, more aware, more attuned to myself than I had ever been. On the other, I was constantly aware of the risks, the potential for embarrassment, judgment, and the delicate balance between secrecy and exposure. Then came the first real test, going outside. The challenge wasn't limited to the apartment. I had to live as a woman in public at least occasionally, to fully embrace the punishment. I chose a quiet evening, slipping into a modest dress and heels, stepping out into the dimly lit streets. Every passerby's gaze felt magnified, every sound seemed amplified. My pulse raced with fear and excitement as I navigated the unfamiliar world. Returning home, the relief was immense, but the anxiety lingered. Each day pushed me further, demanding more confidence, more composure, and more daring. Every interaction, every step, every glance in the mirror reinforced the duality of my existence. I was Ryan, but also someone else, someone daring, alluring, and entirely exposed. Then the first unexpected obstacle appeared. A neighbor dropped by unexpectedly while I was in full attire, asking to borrow something from Isabella. My heart froze. I fumbled for an explanation, my voice trembling, trying to maintain composure. The neighbor's casual curiosity felt like a magnifying glass, exposing every detail of my transformation. That night, alone in the apartment, I reflected on the progress I had made. The thrill of the challenge was intoxicating, yet the fear of being caught was never far behind. The stakes were real, and every misstep could unravel the careful balance I had maintained. By the end of the week, living as a woman had become both natural and terrifying. I had grown more confident in my movements, my appearance, and my persona, but the internal tension never eased. Each day brought new challenges, new temptations, and new fears. The thrill of the forbidden mingled with the anxiety of discovery, creating a heady mix that left me both exhilarated and exhausted. The days of cautiously experimenting with my new life had passed, but nothing could have prepared me for the reality of fully inhabiting this transformation under pressure. By the third week, living as a woman was no longer a secret thrill. It was an all-consuming challenge. Every glance in the mirror reminded me that I was caught between two identities, Ryan and the persona I had been forced to embrace. It started with small slip-ups. A misplaced heel, a tremble in my voice, a gesture too feminine or too clumsy, Each moment left me terrified that Isabella or worse someone else might notice. The apartment, once a sanctuary, had become a stage. Each movement, each interaction felt magnified. My anxiety buzzed in every nerve. Yet beneath the fear, a deeper thrill coursed through me. A delicious, almost addictive awareness of my body, my appearance, and the power it could wield. One evening, Isabella decided to host a small dinner with a few of her friends. Panic surged in me. Public exposure was unavoidable. I had to play the part perfectly or risk revealing everything. I spent hours preparing, selecting the dress that flattered my new figure, meticulously applying makeup, styling my hair. The reflection in the mirror showed someone almost unrecognizable. My heart pounded at the thought of facing her friends, but I had no choice. The bet demanded it, and somehow a part of me craved this terrifying test. As the guests arrived, I felt the weight of every gaze. Conversations buzzed around me, laughter echoing in my ears, and every movement of my body felt scrutinized. My voice trembled slightly despite my best efforts to sound natural. A misstep in heels, a stumble near the buffet table. Each slip sent jolts of panic through me. Yet the sensation of being watched, desired, and scrutinized also heightened every sense, every nerve ending. It was intoxicating. Then came the first real crisis. Isabella's friend, Sophia, leaned in, her eyes locking onto mine with a curious intensity. "You look different tonight," she said casually, but her tone carried a subtle, probing edge. My pulse raced. Was she suspecting something? I fumbled for words, heart hammering, trying to maintain composure while my internal panic surged. "Just trying something new," I murmured, forcing a smile. Sophia's gaze lingered, and I felt exposed in a way I hadn't anticipated. Every heartbeat seemed amplified. I was playing a dangerous game. One wrong word, one hesitant movement, and my secret life could unravel completely. The tension escalated further when Isabella excused herself briefly, leaving me alone with the guests. One of them, a close friend of hers, leaned closer, speaking softly. "You have a captivating presence tonight. I can't quite explain it." Panic and thrill collided inside me. The attention was exhilarating yet terrifying. Every glance, every comment, every subtle observation felt magnified. I realized that living as this persona had unleashed a power I hadn't anticipated, the ability to command attention, to intrigue, even to manipulate perception. Yet it also left me dangerously vulnerable. As the evening progressed, another twist struck. A knock at the door, unexpected, unannounced. My heart leapt. Who could it be? A neighbor? A delivery? Or someone from Isabella's work? I froze, caught mid-step, heels clicking against the floor, hands trembling slightly. The visitor turned out to be a friend of mine from before the bet, someone who had no idea about my challenge. Their casual greeting sent waves of panic through me. I fumbled with my words, trying to maintain composure, my mind racing to calculate the risk of exposure. Each movement felt monumental, each word a potential disaster. Then, in a moment of horrifying symbolism, I tripped on the hem of my dress. My balance wavered, and I felt a surge of vulnerability as the skirt rode up slightly, exposing a part of myself I hadn't intended to reveal. The room froze, eyes darting toward me. My heart thundered in my chest. Every secret, every private thrill, every carefully constructed persona hung by a thread. Isabella returned just in time to witness the scene. Her eyes widened, a mix of shock, curiosity, and confusion flickering across her face. "Ryan, what is happening?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. I tried to speak, to explain, but the words stuck in my throat. The transformation had brought me to a point where fear, excitement, and vulnerability collided. I was trapped between identities, unable to retreat or advance without consequence. The climax intensified as I realized the duality of my existence. I was both the man she had known and the woman I had become. Every glance, every gesture, every word carried the weight of this tension. Could I maintain composure? Could I navigate this fragile, electrified balance? Or would everything collapse in an instant? The night ended with heightened suspense. The guests had departed, but the emotional and psychological stakes remained. I had survived the public test, yet I felt more exposed than ever. My body, my persona, my secret life, all were laid bare, and the realization left me trembling with anticipation and fear. The symbolic moment of the fallen hem, The fleeting exposure and the caught gaze in the mirror marked a turning point. This was no longer a simple challenge. It was an exploration of identity, desire, and the limits of secrecy. Every choice from this point onward carried weight. Every step could trigger revelation, and every interaction could ignite scandal or discovery. The apartment was quiet again, but the silence was heavy, suffocating. The dinner had ended, the guests gone, and Isabella had retreated to her room. I leaned against the wall, my body trembling, heels still pinching my feet, makeup smudged slightly from the evening's nerves. My heart wouldn't stop racing. The night had been a test, and though I had survived, the victory felt hollow. I had navigated the dinner, dodged the probing glances, and maintained my composure, but the risk had left its mark. Every stumble, every slip, every accidental gesture had reminded me of how fragile this new persona was. One wrong move and everything could collapse. The mirror across the room reflected me, half Ryan, half woman. The face I saw was unfamiliar yet intimate. The softness of the dress, the delicate curve of my waist, the subtle shimmer of eyeshadow, it all screamed transformation. But beneath that, the panic in my eyes told a different story. Could I truly inhabit this life, or was it only a borrowed identity, waiting to be stripped away at the first misstep? Then from the bedroom, Isabella's voice called out softly. "Ryan, can we talk?" My pulse jumped. The words were calm, almost tender, but the undertone of curiosity and suspicion made my stomach twist. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Why, yeah. I'm coming." As I approached, the sound of my heels clicking against the floor echoed like a warning. Each step felt louder than it should have, each movement a signal that I was exposed, vulnerable, and on the edge of being discovered. Isabella opened the door just enough to peer out. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, and I froze under her gaze. For the first time, I saw more than curiosity or shock in her expression. There was a flicker of something else. Perhaps admiration, perhaps disbelief, perhaps a hint of something I couldn't name. "Ryan, I don't even know where to start," she said, her voice trembling slightly. I tried to speak, to explain, to justify, but the words caught in my throat. How could I convey the mixture of fear, excitement, and vulnerability that consumed me? How could I make her understand that this wasn't just a bet, that it was a doorway into a side of myself I had never dared to explore? Before I could respond, the sound of the front door opening made my heart leap. Someone else was entering the apartment. My mind raced. Was it a friend, a neighbor, a delivery? Or worse, someone from work? Every instinct screamed to retreat, to hide, to become invisible. But the dress, the heels, the makeup, all of it, made that impossible. Isabella glanced toward the door, her brow furrowing. "Who is that?" I took a shaky step back, my hands clutching the hem of my dress. The moment felt frozen, suspended in time. Every second stretched endlessly as the footsteps drew closer, each one a countdown to revelation. And then I saw him, Alex, my roommate, standing in the doorway with that same knowing smile he always wore. "Evening," he said casually, as if nothing were amiss. Panic and thrill collided inside me. He had seen me before in private, but this time Isabella was witnessing everything. The tension was unbearable, electric, impossible to ignore. My pulse thundered, my legs shook, and I realized, with a mixture of fear and exhilaration, that my life had changed forever. "Ryan, what's going on?" Isabella's voice broke the silence, and I knew the moment of truth had arrived. I opened my mouth to speak, but no words came. I was caught, exposed, trembling in the heels that had once made me feel powerful, in the dress that had given me freedom, under the gaze of both Isabella and Alex. Everything hung by a thread. My secret, my identity, my desires, all balanced precariously on the edge of revelation. One false move, one misstep, and everything could unravel. The apartment seemed to shrink around me, the air thick with anticipation. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my breathing. Could I recover? Could I explain? Or was this the moment where my dual life collided irreversibly with reality? The answer was uncertain. The stakes had never been higher. And as the three of us stood there, the room charged with tension, I realized one thing with stark clarity. Nothing would ever be the same. The scene froze in that suspended moment, leaving every question unanswered. Would Isabella accept this side of me? What would Alex do next? Could I maintain control, or was everything about to collapse? And with that uncertainty hanging in the air, the story ended, not with resolution but with suspense, leaving the audience desperate to know what happens next.